Welcome everyone to our fourth episode. Today, joining me, Phil Galfond. I'm very happy to have him here today. Successful poker player, a poker coach, and founder of Run It Once and Run It Once Poker. And I think I'm not lying if I say that he or you are widely credited for taking such a project and trying to make an impact in poker, which in my opinion deserves a lot of respect. And I think I speak for the community that we are really happy that you took this step, and much respect for that. You're not just someone that speaks about change, you're executing, and really happy to have you here today. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that and for the warm welcome. Yeah, I am executing or trying to.
When was the first time you considered starting your own poker site? I mean, that's a huge project, and I with Raise Your Edge, I also know how many steps it takes until you can launch a project, and I guess a poker site is much bigger than that and takes so many baby steps until you can start releasing something. So when was the first time, not only maybe just a dream, a thought, the moment you realized, okay, you know what, let's do it?
Yeah, I would say that it was never more than just a thought of, oh, wouldn't that be cool, to not even to start it myself, but to be involved with decisions that a poker site is making. That's been there for a while, but only just a thought. And it wasn't until I've at this point lost track of time, but maybe 3 years ago or so, that was really over the course of, it was after one of the many changes that Pokerstars announced that the players were unhappy about, and I was unhappy about as a player, that I spoke to the team and to actually some people outside the company who became part of the company about the idea seriously. You know, what would it take to do this? Do we think we can really do this? And then I kind of progressed from there into, I think maybe we can. So let's try.
What was the biggest obstacle on the way to start this or releasing this project, business-wise? That also the people are actually not so aware of, that you think that people might not even know.
So I've been open about the struggles with getting our software ready over the course of the last few years. That was definitely the biggest hurdle. There are other challenges for sure. I mean, not just setting up a company, because I mean, Run It Once training is a handful of people, and this is just a much different kind of company. I mean, it's a much bigger company. It's just, there are a lot more challenges. It has to be much more organized and well thought out than hey, let's, I think, like when it was Run It Once training, it was like, we can start a good training site, and a few guys just did it. We found that, so that part was hard, and getting licenses and setting up everything legally and within regulations, that's hard as well. But like, the software was always the bottleneck. So, it might have been the case that if we had sped up the software, then the regulatory issues could have been the bottleneck. And regulatory issues are still a challenge, in that we'd like to be in some countries that we're not. We'd like to have some payment options and other player options that we're not able to yet. So in that ways, it's tough. But it really was software that was the biggest hurdle the whole way.
How do you picture the future of Run It Once Poker in, let's say, the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a good question.
What are the plans? How do you picture it?
Yeah, I think 2020 is going to be very telling, because throughout 2019 we've been, we launched in February in beta. We're still technically in beta, and we have cash games only. And 2020 is, I think, when we'll add sit and goes, when we'll add multi-table tournaments, when we'll add mobile support.
Happy to hear that.
And MCT is not right away, but yeah, I think it'll all be in 2020. I hope, and I think it's when we'll find out. Like, for so long we haven't been putting much effort into advertising, because the software wasn't really ready, and we didn't want to spend a bunch bringing a lot of players, and some of them encounter bugs and things like that. So as we're at a good place now where I'm happy with the product, and it's only going to get better. I think it'll get a lot better in January and then throughout the year. So now it's time to see if it really works. If when we have the product that we want and we put some effort into growing our traffic and things like that, we'll find out what kind of player base we can reach, and how we handle different challenges, which are challenges hopefully of a much faster growing poker site with other game offerings and all those things. So I think 2020 will be very telling, and I think I have a lot of high aspirations and dreams for innovations in tournaments, in cash games as well, that we haven't already made, like especially in high stakes cash games, which I think require a lot of different policies and features, which is part of the reason you don't see them run as much anymore. But 3 to 5 years, I hope that I think that if we're around and doing well in 3 to 5 years, that we're going to be doing some really, really cool stuff. And not all I've wanted, but the main thing I've wanted throughout all of this, and kind of the main dream for me, is being in a position where, we have I have the power to help make decisions that impact the industry, and in order to do that, we need to be kind of an established player in the industry and take our own slice of the market share and therefore influence other poker sites. So I'm really excited about even just being in that position. I don't even know all of it. I have a lot of plans that we'll hopefully put into place over the course of 2020 and a little bit beyond. But 5 years from now, we'll definitely be done implementing all the ideas we have so far, but we'll have new ones, and I'm excited for that. I know I'm giving you a long answer, but
that's all right.
It was when we started the poker site, it was fun because we had all these ideas, and it was brainstorming meetings, and we talked to designers like, oh, what would this look like, policy ideas, feature ideas, and then once we started building it, after the first 6 to 12 months, we were like, okay, we have to completely stop with all of our ideas because in the next couple of years we're only going to be able to execute 25% of them. So we kind of put a stop to the very creative brainstorming. So I'm really excited to get to a point one day where we can pick that back up again.
I can relate to that 100%. We also had so many projects. We even, at some point, we had a super sophisticated accounting software for stables. But it's hard to get more manpower and resources on board that share the same vision. That's one of the biggest learnings I have had throughout the years with Raise Your Edge, that it's hard to find the right people for your team. And then when you start new projects, it comes to the cost of manpower. You need to have someone in charge, and have 1 or 2 people that constantly take their time or invest time in order to make it a success. And then we had all these projects and events and new courses and all that kind of cool things, and being very creative in the accounting software. But then at some point we realized we can't really put 100% focus on that, and we had to stop and abandon a lot of the projects actually. And we also went into esports, and instead of highly recommend the book One Thing, by the way, to everyone who's watching. It helped me really a lot to put the focus on the most important things, and to also understand more is not necessarily better. So was there any other learning you had throughout your, not only with Run It Once Poker, but also with your training side, especially in business, something that you would do different now, that you would have said, okay, naive Phil, that was a little bit naive and inexperienced?
I mean, I had a very similar experience to you, not only just with the project of Run It Once Poker, but we took on a couple of other projects as well, even before Run It Once Poker. One was a daily fantasy sports site that we launched and then didn't succeed. And actually it's funny because that project and this other one that I'm going to talk about, I still think in hindsight were in isolation good ideas. But I mean, with daily fantasy sports specifically, the landscape changed a lot from the time that we started building it to the time that we finished, which of course we finished, a year and a half after we expected to finish. So like had it gone as expected and the landscape had not changed as significantly, I think it would have done very well. Another project, which was also a software project that we worked on, that just never saw the light of day for a number of reasons. That actually took probably for 6 to 8 months before Run It Once Poker really, like, the work started to pick up. I was near full time on that with a couple of other people. So, like, in essence, I wasted the better part of a year, and the better part of my weeks for that year on a project that didn't work. Had it worked, I think it would have done well. But I think the lesson that's, so like I said, in hindsight, I think those could have worked. The lesson though is, we took on too many things at once, of course, and probably each one individually would have had much better chance of success had that been our only focus or our secondary focus to Run It Once training. And also what I've learned is just to expect the unexpected. Anytime you take on something ambitious, it's never going to go smoothly, and there are so many moving parts that you can almost guarantee that one of them is gonna go wrong in some way, and you need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, it's like being a firefighter, and you fight against the fire that never stops, and it just occurs on different spots, and you have to go there, solve it, go to the next one, and then there's another fire, and
exactly. And I actually need to remind myself of that, because with Run It Once Poker, for 2019, so much of it was like, we need to get our software to the point that we want it to be, and we're getting to the point now where it's there, or very, very close to there, and it's easy to think like, oh, once it's there, everything's going to be easy. But now it's like, okay, well, now we need to focus on growing our traffic, because like a big part of our product is liquidity and quality of games, and so we have to end, like, you need traffic to get traffic, so that's our focus. But I know that if and when we succeed with growing our traffic a lot, there's going to be a new challenge, a new thing we're going to have to handle. So it's good to remind myself that there's always going to be a new challenge, and it's never going to be, once you reach this point and solve this problem, it's going to be smooth sailing. It's not how business works, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. Are there any promotions planned in January, February, maybe at the beginning of 2020?
Yeah, so we do have a pretty big promotion planned that I think we'll be teasing it very soon, and then we'll launch it probably in about a week, or a little over a week. So I can't say too much about it, but
okay.
But
people should follow it, pay attention until the big news are coming out.
Yeah, and then of course my challenges are coming. Those will start mid-January.
Your challenge.
And we'll run some promotions around that, but also, even without them, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the challenge. I know other people are. I'm probably the most excited. But yeah, that's been my focus.
Give me 5 cards and I accept the challenge.
The 5 cards?
Okay, my 5 cards against your 4 cards.
How much have you played PLO, you said?
A bit. Cash game.
A bit. Okay. I probably can't.
Yeah, your challenge. What is your motivation behind your challenge? I mean, you are the odds. If you look at the odds that you are giving yourself, they're not pretty much in your favorites. It's 5-1, 4-1, or 1-4.
Well, so I offered. It depends on the challenge. So I offered any competing training site coach 5-1, or I offered anybody 3-1, and several people reached out with interests, and then none of them panned out. It looked like a couple were, and then it just didn't work out. So then I tweeted that I was offering 5-1 for a limited time. And there was more interest again, and then it didn't work out. So, I mean, technically, right now there's not an open 5-1 offer, but I mean, I probably still would give 5-1. It doesn't seem like anybody's going to take it. So the motivation, it's funny because the motivation has shifted, or like the benefits. The initial motivation was, frankly, I was looking at my Run It Once videos, and I have access to the data, and my views were going down in the last year. And I was thinking, it makes sense because I haven't really been playing poker for a few years. I've played very little in the last few years, especially online.
Just PLO or so no limit hold'em?
I'm only just my videos, which are almost all PLO.
Okay.
And so I thought, I guess, people, my reputation carried me so far for a couple of years, but now people are, looking elsewhere because they assume that I'm not in touch with, which is, in part true. I still feel like I have a lot to teach. So I felt like in order to show that. It would be a good idea to make some challenges, even if nobody accepted, which I was fine with at first, but now I want somebody to. Even if nobody accepted, it's just to say, hey guys, at least I will back up with my money that I think I can still play, and play at a high level. And so my initial hope was that it would kind of remind remind the poker world who are looking to get coaching that I still can play PLO and still teach PLO quite well. And then I realized, as I talked about it with the team a little bit more, this is actually really a good promotion for run-on-ones poker, more than anything else, because like nosebleed matches are pretty rare these days, and people love watching a challenge. So then the focus became, let's make this a run-on-ones poker promotion primarily, and play on run-on-ones poker, and get some production behind it, and give people something fun to watch. So that became the main focus. And honestly, recently for me, as I've been getting closer and closer, I'm just realizing how excited I am to play poker again, like very seriously, because I haven't played very seriously in years. And even back then, but especially now, it's really hard to get consistent action at even, like 25, 50 consistent action. And so the thought of waking up, 5-6 days a week and having guaranteed 100, 200 heads up PLO action, and just like being a poker player for several months in a row is really, really exciting for me. So honestly, like, as much as it still is, it's a run-it-once promotion, I'm just really excited to play. I can't wait.
Yeah, you can see the fire that is sparking up there.
I think, people, especially because I've not been playing so much and kind of went the business route, I think people maybe don't realize that, like, how much I love playing poker. And I don't necessarily regret going the route that I have, but it was kind of accidental. Like, I never expected to be spending 30 plus hours a week on business, but the business ended up demanding it, so that's what I did. But yeah, I really, really miss playing poker, and I'm just really excited to be battling. And I think, like, even though I have some tough matches lined up, like, if I win, if I break even, if I lose small, it's going to be a ton of fun. If I get crushed, it might not be that fun.
Yeah.
But in most cases, it's going to be a lot of fun for me.
It's already a statement that so little people were interested in the challenge. I mean, even if nobody has accepted, that's the best validation you can get, right? Like, even
it's good for it kind of proves my point a little bit, that I still, like, at least that other people believe I can still play. But yeah, I mean, I'm still going to play non-coaches. So we have, I think I've announced 4 matchups, and then one that didn't work out, so it was 5. And I have probably 3 more still working out the details on. So it'll be 7 challenges of varying lengths and stakes and terms, but it's going to be a lot of poker.
Yeah. I've received some questions about the challenge with Janus, that it's not going to happen, that he was backing out. Maybe for those who are not aware of what happened, if you want to share something or not, that's totally up to you. But maybe just to give some insights on what happened and if this challenge is going to happen or not.
It sounds like it's not going to happen. And I mean, for those who have followed, I don't know, 2+2 or Twitter, the community is not being kind to Jay Nandez. I've personally always had good interactions with him, and a lot of people are kind of, like, angry on my behalf. I'm not angry at him. So I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. I just want to make clear I don't have any negative feelings towards him at all. Through this.
Fair enough.
But yeah, he accepted the challenge. He had to raise some money, which he made clear to me early on. I even said, I've had some other coaches who wanted to accept the challenge and were really sure that they were in and planned to raise some money, and then they came back and said they couldn't, so they backed out. So I asked him to I asked him if he could make sure to like get it all sorted soon, and he told me he'd get it done by end of the year, which was good with me. And it's not entirely clear to me whether it's. I know that some of his like investors were having second thoughts or doubts or concerns. I don't know if he said that he still could raise the money, but their kind of concerns made him less confident that he was doing something like doing a good thing for the people investing in him, or giving them a positive EV investment.
Yeah.
And then he also said that something along the lines of just how big of a commitment the challenge is, which is a massive commitment, and he didn't want to make it. So that's what I have. I mean, he hasn't told me anything. That's what he told me directly and what he posted publicly. So that's all I know. And it's like I said, had he said like, no, I'm accepting it, I have the money and we're gonna play, that would have been different. But he told me the whole time that he was gonna raise the money and he expected that he could. But of course, there's no guarantee there. So
yeah,
it didn't end up working out, and didn't end up working out.
Where do you see in general the future of online poker? You see it more positive, or?
I think that it depends, honestly, and part of why I'm so passionate about being in a position where I can help make decisions for an online poker site is because I think that for online poker to succeed in the future, poker players need to be involved in some of those decisions, because there are a lot of things that are hard to figure out if you're not even like if you're not a high stakes poker player, even like a small stakes poker player might not figure out, because I don't know, poker's sometimes counterintuitive, and the challenges are hard to understand. And so I think that, I mean, look, we have Front of One's Poker, which I hope does well. I think that Rob Young is trying to do a lot of good things at Party Poker, and I think that's a positive. I think that, I think there are a lot of good things happening. I think like PokerGo, Triton is doing a lot of awesome things, and so there are a lot of people that have kind of there are a lot of companies or people that have entered the industry in recent years that have made me feel more positive about it. Obviously, the biggest challenges to online poker in the future are pretty clearly, I think, regulation and bots.
Okay.
And regulation is something that I can't do anything about.
Yeah.
Maybe Party Poker can have some influence with their budget, but it's kind of out of most of our hands. So that's one big challenge. I think it's becoming like certain markets are leaving and others are. It's becoming legal, but you need to get a license, and then maybe they can only play with certain markets, and so that's going to be a challenge. And not only because we lose certain countries in the global player pool, but also because regulators aren't poker players, and sometimes they'll have some rules that make it really challenging for. I mean, I don't even remember off the top of my head, but there are some countries where you're supposed to pay tax on every winning hand, and so you just can't play poker in that case.
Yeah.
So that's one example, but I do think that there's a risk of different markets leaving the global player pool, and then also having regulations that make it basically impossible to run a poker site without making the games unbeatable, because you need to charge so much rake that ruins the games, and then also those open up the doors for the sites that are unregulated, that don't really play within the rules. They just get such a competitive advantage, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be a bad thing for online poker if actually one of these sites who didn't follow the rules was just also extremely ethical with the players.
Yeah.
But I think that's always going to be risky, even if it seems that one is. So that's one, and then bots, obviously. Bots are going to keep progressing. I do think that I think in some ways the fear of the future is overstated or exaggerated, because there are already computers can already beat humans in every form of poker. So it's not like they're going to progress so much that they are going to progress, but the games aren't ruined yet, is what I'm trying to say. I think the battle of technology between the sites and the bot makers is going to more come down to like skirting detection and things like that, which I don't really know. I don't know how much more advanced. I mean, everything's going to get more advanced on either side, I guess, is the answer there. I think that a large part of combating bots has to do with changing policies and game structures to stay ahead of them, and it's going to be interesting to see if that works, because like we've even had resistance with Splash the Pot, which is a bot deterrent, because a lot of players don't want to play something they're not used to. And so if, for example, in 8 years, like the best way to combat bots is to create like a Hold'em / stud like variant with drawing cards and all these things that make it much more difficult for bots to catch up. Not that they can't necessarily solve that, but there are some things that can be a lot more challenging. Then the challenge is, do people want to play it? Because it's not what they're used to, and I don't really know the answer to that.
Interesting. I don't know if you've seen it. I recently I made a YouTube video talking about my personal opinion about the current state of online poker and poker in general, and what needs to be changed, ruling, transparency, and one core principle I brought up that I would like to see is, as you see it in any other sport, is a leaderboard system that you can identify the best players in the game. And yes, I know this has been already tried with how is it called, global GPI or GPA, I don't know, with Berlin Bears and San Francisco whatever. I didn't like this format. I think it was purely executed. However, I think why sports is so interesting, football, tennis, whatever, you see competing the best against the best. And I made a Twitter poll and I was asking people, are you guys in for the money? So would you like to see an EPT final table with plenty of money at first, or would you like to see competing the best against the best with a much smaller prize pool, let's say just 100K at first? And it was an astonishing 85 or 80% and more people want to see playing the best against the best. And of course, it's not easy to be introduced. It needs a lot of overworking the current status quo, and it also needs to be designed in a way where you give the players an incentive to participate, to first of all reveal your winnings, because I truly believe, especially with all these 25Ks, 50Ks, 100Ks, yes, you see people having an overall score of 110 million cashes, but I mean, if you accumulate the buy-ins, it's not very unlikely that they have 15 million in buy-ins and they're actually losing players, right? But at first, like, wow, 10 million in cashes, this guy is a crusher. So what do you think about this idea in general with a leaderboard system, maybe a weekly, monthly, yearly league system, sending in different leagues, or just just knowing who are the I know it's not possible to identify 100%. There's still variance, of course, but what do you think about it?
I could not agree more. I think that I've felt this way for a long time, and actually an old friend, like I feel like 10 years ago, just said poker needs to, like this, said actually what you said, like poker, the difference between poker and other sports is that in every other sport they have stats on these players. And so not just, not just a leaderboard, but hey, this guy's succeeded in 67% of his river bluffs, or whatever else. So like I completely agree. It's really hard to come up with the incentives for the players who are going to be the best because they have so much earned potential, and it's also hard to have them play for any significant amount of their own money and incentivize them because people are careful. I think actually though, like the reaction that I've gotten and the number of offers I've gotten for these challenges is maybe a good indication that people are eager or willing to battle, because I know that a lot of the people I mean, I think basically everybody, maybe with one exception, who's accepting my challenge thinks they're going to be a favorite, at the price they're getting. Maybe everybody, but still, I'm sure that some know that it's going to be a tough, close EV battle. So I do think that I think it shows that people might be more willing than we thought to do something like this. Every time we've spent a couple days brainstorming the way something along these lines could work, we haven't come away with something that I felt like would succeed in incentivizing players.
Yeah.
And so I think that's far and away the biggest challenge. I think you could do something like it in live tournaments with just a lot more tracking of not only the results, but like I was saying, the actual like stats and things like that.
Oh, it's also easy to track online, isn't it?
Well, I'm saying, yeah, online tournaments as well. I just think that anything where it's like a heads-up league or very tough, like 6-max table, I just think once you get too tough, it's really hard to keep the incentives aligned.
Yeah,
or give them enough incentives.
Yeah, it has to be that a certain fraction of the buy-in is sponsored by a third party that owns the rights, and of course, this third party needs to see a lot of benefits in terms of reach and marketing, right? It needs to see the potential. I mean, I saw it in esports, and that's where the first time I realized the prize pools are smaller. Like sometimes it's just a couple of $1,000, and you have 20,000 viewers on Twitch. I'm like, we don't even reach it on a EPT final table sometimes, where they play for 800,000. And then this relation, I'm asking myself, why is this happening? Why does it attract so many more viewers than poker?
I think a big difference though is that, like, if we create a tournament or a tournament league that has like 400 players, they play tournaments throughout the year, and there's 300,000 added like to the prize pool, we're not going to get a lot of the very best players. And so it depends if
you think they're too rich, there's too much money involved.
Yeah, it's too much time and effort, and they have other opportunities. And so the challenge then becomes, like in esports, I'm actually less familiar than I should be with esports, but even when there's a small prize pool, I imagine a lot of these people have sponsorships and other ways to make money, and also they can't go play somebody heads up privately and make money. And so I think they're only like, it used to be the case in poker that like getting your name out there could be worth quite a lot because sites were handing out sponsorship deals that were very lucrative. But then once it shut down in the US, that stopped. And so there's very little incentive for players to become famous. Yeah. At least financial incentive.
That's true.
Just, ego. And so I think without the financial incentive, it's just going to be really hard for anything like this without a significant amount of money added to attract the very best. And it could still work without the very best, because obviously the viewing public who's watching poker on ESPN, they don't know who the very best are. Yeah. So it can still work, I think. But I think for guys like you and me, we want to see the very best, and the people responding to your poll, we really want to see the very best. I think that's, I don't know how we solve that.
And I really like your idea with the statistic, because I love watching football, and I love the mid-time shows where the hosts are analyzing the stats, the shots to the goal, or the passing frequency, or whatever it is. Like these minor details, they make up a big show. And I see it in esports. They analyze every single stat, and then it comes to a battle between two players, and then, oh wow, he's insane in these situations, and the other guy's not performing so well. And then it's just the overall story is just so much more touching and so much more. It's a whole story. And I feel like with poker, just, okay, let's win. Let's see who wins, who makes all the money, and then that's it. And I like Triton, though. I think there is an effort. The overall show is so much better than everything else right now. The commentating is so much better. That goes in the right direction. And I was actually also thinking about what can we do. But when I think about the struggles we have with Razor Edge, because you need licenses and all that kind of thing. We already struggle with payment providers blocking our accounts because they think we promote poker, and it's like, no, or we are offering poker games. It's like, no, we're not a poker site. And then you talk to an employee and you actually explain it. No, we're just a poker school. We teach poker, and that aligns with their rules and terms of use. So we don't need a license. And it took us weeks and months. Like, but no, like there are poker posts on your social media. I can see. No, but we're not offering games.
Yeah.
And if I see that already, if I already see that, and that's probably what most people don't see, and you have to deal with that like for weeks and months. And then actually taking the step to promote poker or even offering games or tournaments, whatever, then I know that would be a big step. But it needs someone that has a license, Party Poker, Pokerstars, or Run at Once Poker, whoever it is, sees an opportunity. Okay, let's take the step and maybe start creating a leaderboard system or whatever it is to go more in that direction.
Yeah, I would love to figure it out, but we haven't gotten the answer just yet, or haven't come up with something that we love.
Yeah. Are you maybe afraid something that someone raised recently, and I found this thought really interesting, that this might also be maybe a danger for poker when we have a leaderboard system and everything becomes more centralized, and maybe there's a new monopoly emerging, and do you think this could be detrimental to the industry?
No, I don't think so, because in any way that this works, the incentives have to remain consistent. So let's say I'm a player, just me, if 5 years from now this league or whatever it is has a monopoly such that I want to play there, assuming I don't have a contract that's locked me in forever, it's gonna still have to make sense. So it's either making sense because the games are very good, like the action I can get is very good, the money added is worth it, there are deals, like sponsorship deals, that come with it. So like if at any point it got to the point where people, like, they were abusing their monopoly and the players were playing for not very much, and the players would just stop playing. I can't, I mean, this was obviously my 10-second answer, but I can't off the top of my head see how they would abuse it in a way such that the players couldn't just go elsewhere.
Yeah. I also didn't see any harm. It was an interesting thought that maybe there's
the argument. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. You could say that WSOP could start abusing their monopoly on kind of, just because bracelets are kind of the gold standard of like the poker prize that people want to have like a legacy. You could say that they could abuse that, I suppose. So if they abuse it too much, I do think eventually people would go elsewhere, or there's an opportunity for somebody to swoop in and compete.
So you are let's get a little deeper. Something that me personally intrigues very much when I meet some very inspiring people. Like, by the way, I've been copying you my entire life. You turned a professional poker player. I turned a professional poker player. You started a poker school. I started a poker school. You started a poker platform. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe.
Well, so for real, you've been very successful with everything you do, and from what we've seen, there are also uncovered stories or projects that nobody has seen, so a lot of failures come along the way with it. And then this is a recurring pattern with successful people that I see, that they actually have a lot of failures and try and error. So for everyone who's watching, don't give up, keep going. It is part of the process, and you should not get desperate just because you try once, you fail. There are a lot of obstacles. Mm-hmm. However, so you have been very successful with everything you do. How would you describe for yourself the difference between being successful and being happy, if you see any difference there?
It depends what you mean. Do you mean career success with happiness? Because those are, I think, definitely different. Yeah, I think those are different, and I think they're a lot different. I think that a big part of, and fortunately for me, like, at least with poker, I've always loved poker. So being successful at poker does often correlate with happiness because like it's loving what you do and succeeding at it is a lot of fun. So in that respect, for most of my career, there was kind of a high correlation, but I don't know. I I guess I don't because I don't enjoy running the business like I enjoy playing poker. But
Interesting.
the but like so the training site has always been relatively successful, but I didn't. It was never a full time or near full time job for me. I would spend a handful of hours every week, and the team would run most of the things. I would be there for big decisions and for recruiting coaches and reviewing their submission videos. But beyond that, it was never like a full time thing. It didn't take up much of my time, so it's hard to say how that would have impacted happiness. But like the poker site is a lot more work, and the other projects that didn't work out were a lot more work for me. And I found it interesting. I find them interesting, but I don't enjoy them like I enjoy playing poker. But it's hard for me to say because we haven't been successful yet. We've had small victories, but we haven't been successful yet. So if the poker site were wildly successful, then who knows? Maybe it would. I mean, obviously, I'd be happy about that.
Would that impact your happiness level so much? Like, would it change your current level of happiness if you would have even, or would really be very successful with your poker site?
Yes, but not because of finances. It'd be because of the dream that we'd be delivering on, and also more than anything else, the team that I've grown very close to, who are working so hard, being able to be rewarded and being a part of that success. So I think it would make me happier in that respect. It would also make me happier in that I would, have less stress about it. But no, I definitely don't think that financial success is highly correlated to happiness. I think that financial freedom is like
just one metric of.
Yeah, like if you've gotten to a point where you're not worrying all the time about money, but I'm also not. I mean, very fortunately, I'm not in a position where I could compare it to a time when I was really struggling because I was playing nosebleeds when I was 21. So I never really experienced the real world in that respect. But that's at least my understanding, is that like the main difference, and I felt it, the positive side, but I have nothing to compare it to. But just like, being able to, well, actually, I guess I've experienced some portion of it now, which is like what I miss most, not most, what I really miss about poker. One of the things I really miss is, if I feel like for 3 days, just going to visit a friend or watching TV for 3 days straight. Like I used to be able to do that. And now with a business and also with a baby, I can't do that anymore. So the freedom, I think it does have a big impact on happiness, but it's not all there is.
Yeah. Very interesting, because it's something that I truly believe that still being misunderstood, that so many people chase this. And they're more attached to the money. It's like they see with poker an opportunity, but also my coachings, or when people see a message, you sense that poker is not really a thing for you, and you're just doing it for the money. And then they get disappointed when they actually reach the money. And I've met also a lot of very successful poker players that somehow they made it, but they're just so miserable. They just
I've had the same experience. I've also, I think that the rate of failure for people who are playing just for the money is much higher. Obviously, some still make it.
Yeah.
But it's just so much higher if that's the reason that you're playing.
Yeah. I see it always as, yes, money and also the financial freedom is one pillar. But then, as you mentioned, and I think that's a very important point, it just eradicates the worries out of your life. But then you still have way more time than someone else who has to worry and fight for paying the bills. But you got to make something out of it. Then it's actually where you have the time and you need to find something, whether it's, start a family or start a business or start traveling. Even then traveling, what kind of experience would you like to make? And really go deep. Always ask yourself why you're doing it. And it's something I feel like people are not understanding yet, and maybe they have to make their own experiences once they get there. Because I also believe, I remember in 2014 when I had my best year in sit and goes, and I made the most money in sit and goes worldwide. I felt miserable as fuck because I was just attaching too much to that goal of becoming the best and making the most money. But then I reached it, and I'm like, yeah, and what now?
Yeah.
Or it was 2015 or 16, whatever. And that's where I realized, okay, that there's more than that. It's just
definitely you see it with, like, I don't know, I come across people in poker games who have trust funds and don't have to work for anything, and like not every time, but a lot of times you see them not being happy or having some bad habits like gambling and drugs and things like that, because you need the purpose. You need a focus. It doesn't have to be financial focus, but I agree completely that you need a focus and a drive.
What is a bad habit that Phil Galfond has that maybe people are not aware of?
My habits are actually not that good. So let's see. What a poker habit. My bad poker habit is that I just never quit. It's really hard for me to quit a session. I don't like playing 3-hour, 4-hour sessions. I like playing 10 hours. It's actually something that's coming up in my challenges. Like, I'm talking to people and I'm like, how much volume can you play? And they're like, oh, I want to play maybe 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I'm like, I want to play 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. Nobody wants to play the volume that I want. And I was talking to Elliot Rowe about that. And he was shocked at my habits, because he said everybody that he's worked with, will play like 2.5 hour sessions a day with a break in between and all these things. And I just sit down and play for 10 hours all the time. And I guess it's because you could do that when I came up in poker. It was easy enough that, bad habits didn't matter, but now to have the edges, you need to have better habits. So that's one of my bad habits. I don't have very good study habits, certainly. And I know you asked for one and I've already answered, but I have a lot of bad habits.
Something more that is not poker related? Or if there aren't any obvious ones, that's why you're then...
Yeah, no, nothing like stands out as obvious. I definitely am... no, nothing stands out as obvious. Just, I'm definitely not like a structured good habit kind of person.
No morning routine?
No.
No morning routine. Unless getting pretty for the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Just that. If I have a podcast, then
so you said you mentioned your study behavior is not the best. So how does you, maybe back then when you were still playing actively as a full-time poker pro, and now also comparing it today, what is your study routine look like? And maybe also an advice, what do you think is the best way to study? Maybe the ratio between study and playing. It's a very popular question.
It is, yeah. I do think what's really important to recognize is that everybody learns differently. And I think that, what works best for me is not necessarily going to work best for you, and so on. So I do think that usually I kind of always say this, but I never really did it. But I think that it's important to play and study. If you're going to study, just studying for a month without playing, it doesn't work very well. The only kind of study that I did while playing was like a database study a little bit. Like, I would go through not even my own hands, but I would look through my stats compared to my opponent's stats.
Like population analysis?
I never did that because I didn't. It was a while ago. I don't know how. I guess I could have had the tools to do that.
Or just analyzing specific opponents.
It was usually specific opponents, but honestly, I did most of that at the tables with a HUD. But that was a lot of my focus, is finding leaks and figuring out what to do to counter them.
So you didn't study so much theory, you would say?
No, I never studied theory at all. I watched training videos all the time. I still watch training video probably 5 times a week.
Okay.
But in large part because I enjoy I enjoy keeping up, but also I just enjoy watching them.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
But yeah, I never really studied. The tools have changed a lot.
True.
16 years ago when I played sit and goes, I studied the sit and go like push shove tools, but they're probably not what you have today. And yeah, there was not like, I mean, back then there was like Card Runners EV. I never used that once. There was, I mean, yeah, Pro Poker Tools, I guess, been around. I never really used that, more than a few hours here and there. There were sometimes, this actually happened more with Triple Draw because it was a more, like it's an easier game to figure out mathematically. There were some times where I would have an idea and I would spend like 18 hours building a spreadsheet and like trying to figure it out. But that was maybe like twice a year, something like that happened. So I never had any kind of consistent study routine. And I think that I learned by playing, and I loved to play. And I just always played a lot. And I did have, I mean, I don't think I'm unique in this way, but I had the either fortunate or unfortunate inability to stop thinking about poker. So I would play for 8 hours and then I would go do whatever else in the evening and still be thinking about some of the interesting hands and things like that. I feel like I learned that way just because I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. Obsessed, almost.
Obsessed for sure. And I think all of my like biggest jumps in poker came from working with other people. So like the biggest leap in my game by far was when I was 21 and spent the summer in Vegas with a bunch of guys in a house, which like was the first time I'd ever really talked. Like I talked on whatever, on I guess it was AIM back then.
AIM? Was it even before ICQ? I never heard of that.
I know. Yeah. I'm an old man now. But I never really like seen somebody play before that besides myself.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I think like talking poker with people has always been the thing that's helped me most. And in some ways training videos can like partially replace that.
Yeah.
But not all the way.
Yeah. I'm really happy that you brought that up, that you were so focused on analyzing your Gegners. Now I'm to start talking German. Your opponents, and because something I'm also always trying to teach, because in these days, especially when people started playing poker 2-3 years ago, so they basically come from an quote-unquote age where they start learning poker with PyroSolver or all these GTO tools, and then to me they're getting brainwashed, because it's not about you trying to play perfectly balanced, it's about trying to exploit your opponents, and this is this is a tendency that will deteriorate your win rate. And when you constantly try to balance your ranges and try to play GTO, you're not exploiting your opponents because they're not playing GTO at all. And I think I've not met so many players that play so exploitative as you do, and I've seen also a lot of videos from you, and so I even enjoy watching your PLO videos too, because it's a similar approach for No Limit Hold'em as well. I can just take your brain, your approach, and also use it for poker. And every single time I see videos from Run It Once, or I saw videos from Poker Strategy, and I've seen from so many different coaches, I always try to take what works best. And I think trying to exploit your opponents is the best strategy. And I think, of course, GTO has some advantages, right? It teaches you the foundations, like what you need to know about poker. But then you gotta take the next step and just exploit your opponents relentlessly. And I can't remember a coaching session where I had a student that open raced bigger with aces to exploit a big fish. I'm like, this is something where I came from. I have aces. Let's put 1 or 2 big lines on top. Like there's a target on the table. And he likes to call. Okay, then he likes to call. And this good old straightforward ABC boring poker is. It's a skill that I'm missing in these days for a lot of players.
Yeah, it's funny that because I agree with you completely, obviously, but I do think I'm getting outnumbered in the high stakes poker community. In that, like, I also think that optimal play is way what's the word? It's just like people think it's all there is, and it's definitely not. It's overvalued. By a lot. And I think that, if you see me succeed in these challenges, it's not going to be from playing optimally. I'm not going to have a better understanding of optimal play than my opponents, for the most part, for at least many of them. And so I don't know, maybe I'm trying to prove to myself that that you know, kind of my style of play can still work.
Yeah.
But I believe it can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And I
think that's why I'm an underdog in my matches so far on PokerShares. The world doesn't believe it can.
I believe in you. How do you deal with tilt? Have you ever had issues with tilt? What would be your advice to players that have tilt issues? Let's talk about raging, the good old, let's punt it over with 7 deuce offsuited because this guy just sucked me out. And then, of course, the other side of tilt, playing too scared and too tight and too passive.
Yeah, I never really experienced the first side of tilt. I've been pretty fortunate. So I don't know. Like I sometimes think I'm playing in Bobby's room, let's say, and something happens. Somebody slams their fist on the table, or like, and I sometimes think to myself, like, I've never even had the urge to do that. So I can't actually relate to people who say, like, I'm trying to control my anger, but I obviously believe that people deal with that, but I don't know what it feels like to have that kind of tilt, fortunately. But everybody tilts in one way or another, and like you said, playing scared. My like most common form of tilt is autopiloting, I would say, and then also a little bit. I think that everybody, maybe not everybody, but my form of tilt would be autopiloting, and then playing scared along with it. I wouldn't say like playing scared. I've played enough poker that I'm not like necessarily afraid of losing, but when you've been losing for a while, your confidence can go down. And sometimes I find that if I'm really not focused and I'm losing, I get into a mindset of kind of just like, okay, I'm autopiloting and I hope I run good.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I don't want to like stick my neck out there and make a creative play where I might get punished and feel stupid. So I think that's the most. I think a lot of people experience that. That's my most common form of tilt.
Interesting. So I mean, I would have never expected that you can rage, or you always seem super calm and always very rational, and that's very, very important in poker. What's the best life advice you've ever gotten, whether in a book or from someone, or maybe an own experience that serves as an advice that you should do it better next time?
So I was taking, this is a plug now, but not intentionally, but I was taking the course that Elliot Rowe has on Run It Once, A-Game Poker Masterclass, and in one of the modules there was an exercise where he like asks you to picture like a perfect week, and like if you were doing all the things you want to be doing in your life, just write out your schedule for a week.
Okay.
And in a perfect world, and wrote that out, and then he has you go through like, okay, how many of these things can you do right now? And I don't remember exactly what was in my perfect week, but I was like, oh, I can do like 80% of these I can just do right now and fit within my life right now. And it was a good exercise to make me realize that, like, I think it's very common. It's extremely common for people to say, like, I want all of these habits, but I'll just, right now I'm focusing on this important thing and I'll deal with that later. And it was a good exercise to realize, no, I can't do everything that I would want to do in an ideal week right now because I have certain obligations or don't have certain opportunities, whatever it is. But you do have a good amount of control, especially for people like us, but everybody, you have some control over what you do with your time, and it was helpful for me to picture what I wanted to be doing and start doing a little bit more of what I wanted to be doing.
Yeah. Would you say from yourself that you are a very structured person? You have like the to-do list for the day, or you're just getting up and then let's check in with the projects, with the most important people, what's going on, and then you just go with whatever comes up?
I'm more the latter, but the way I am, and I think the best example I can give is like with diet and exercise, is I'll have a extremely strict, like, written out diet and exercise plan, and then I will stick to it perfectly for 3 weeks, and then I'll stop, and then I have no rules. So I'm like probably 80% of the time I'm just doing whatever. And then and not just with diet and exercise, but like a lot of the times I just end up doing whatever. But the only way I can really like, sometimes I can get very obsessive and focus on something very hard and stick to something very strictly for a long time. And sometimes that's, can last months. Often it lasts weeks.
So how does it work when you don't have a plan? Then it just gets completely out of control, like eating whatever you feel like, basically.
Yeah, basically, I
Okay.
don't have a middle ground. So I mean, with diet and exercise specifically, I'm always going in one direction or the other, getting more healthy or less healthy, never maintaining.
What is the typical food you're eating when you're on a diet? What works really well for you?
Um, I do best on like relatively lower carb and higher protein. I don't do well on like the traditional keto high fat
Yeah.
diet. So for me, it's that's what works well for me when I'm and like what I'm better at sticking to. But I'm not definitely by no means a nutrition expert. So
Yeah, me neither.
yeah.
I just try to figure out
How about you?
what
Yeah.
brings the best energy. Like what do I feel very, very. Of course, I try to not eat too much to gain weight, but if you're somewhat staying aware of, okay, not eating fast food or sodas or too many juices, sugar, then you should be fine. Then I try to select those foods that provide me with the most energy. For example, the biggest game changer for me was trying to avoid protein with carbs in the evening, because it uses different enzymes for the digestion, so it's very energy draining. And then I do most of my work in the evening. So if I eat, let's say, fish, I only eat with a salad. If I eat meat, I only eat with a salad. If I eat potatoes, rice, pasta, I only eat with a salad. So I'm not trying to combine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's some effective food charts in the internet. So the foods that are the least energy draining. Yeah, it worked out pretty well. Usually when you have a Christmas dinner,
Yeah.
big piece of meat, potatoes, salad, and afterwards you just feel completely destroyed. That's why it really helps me.
Okay, cool. That's good.
Yeah. Do you read a lot? Can you recommend a book, something
No, I probably read.
outside of poker, of course?
Yeah, no, I mean outside of poker books, I've probably read 4 books as an adult. I own a lot of books. I buy a lot of books and then I don't read them. I always intend to, but no, nothing stands out to me as. I mean, the last book I read was a baby book. Nothing stands out to me as a book recommendation.
Well, maybe there's someone watching who's about to get a baby. Maybe you can give a recommendation.
Yeah,
there.
I didn't love it, so
Okay.
so I don't have a recommendation. No, I've never. Everybody that talks about reading, like especially like a lot of successful people, read all the time and attribute a lot of their success or some of their success to reading so much, and I don't. I'm not like proud that I don't read and am still successful. I think for whatever reason, it doesn't interest me. I can't like make myself stick to it. There's always something else I'd rather be doing, and so I just.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, it's not for me, but that's not it. I would not recommend not reading as a key to poker's success. Just
Yeah.
I just have.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean,
Do you?
yeah, I read a lot. But I'm not a big fan of trying to read as much as I can. If I take a book, I take my time to read it thoroughly, because as someone if he shares a story, I want to know the story, not just the facts about the book, because I know that right now it's a big trend. All these I don't know if you've seen it. These how are they called? For example, Blinkist, where you can just get summaries of the books and you can get a subscription. I don't know. You can't digest so many information. You also want to apply them. It's not possible to apply all that, because also in business and poker, as I've learned, you got to apply that shit. And whenever I read a book, I try to see for myself, okay, what can I incorporate in my life? What can I try out? And if there's nothing, then I go to the next book. But if there's something really interesting, for example, this is what I'm reading right now, The Oxygen Advantage, because sometimes I feel a little bit lower energy. And I've heard about that certain breathing techniques, so the way we breathe, can really have an impact on your level of focus and your level of your energy level. And I gave it a try, and it's a very practical book. I can just do these techniques right away and not just increase my level of wisdom, but can't really.
And do you feel like you've already, like you can notice a difference right away, or not necessarily?
I just started. I definitely do in my exercise, because, for example, it recommends taping your mouth and then doing exercise and just breathe through your nose.
Mm-hmm.
And I have broken my records in running. I've broken my records in the usual workouts I do. I finished them a minute earlier or 30 seconds earlier. So that was quite a significant step already, even though I'm doing these techniques now just for technically a few days or maybe a week.
Okay,
cool. That works.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know, because I'm curious.
Yeah.
It sounds very interesting. Yeah, I think that anytime I've read a book, which, like I said, has been a handful of times, and most of them I do feel like it's been beneficial.
Yeah.
But something about it, like I feel too busy, which is a bad excuse.
It's true. Sometimes I plan reading 40 pages or 30 pages, and like there's so much else to do. But I think we should also, when you already try to excel and grow and learn, you shouldn't be too hard to yourself. For example, I'm not a person that gets up early. I know this trend about getting up as early as possible, and so many people like it. I know, I'm just a night owl. And
it's funny. I always was my whole life until a year ago, when we had a baby, and like now I wake up early and I'm used to it. I guess I wouldn't say that I feel like it's changed my life, like the waking up early part. The baby part has. But yeah, I was always the same way.
Because I can get the same stuff, because people say you're so productive in the morning, you can get so much stuff done, but your day still has 24 hours. I can also do it in the night when everyone else is sleeping. So I'm pretty sure there are benefits, and it works out for people. So I would never say, okay, you got to start reading books, you got to start taking cold showers, do all that fancy stuff. Like, try it out for yourself. I'm always telling people, try it out, see it if it works for you, if it doesn't. But it should never be an excuse when it gets hard. It's like, it's nothing for me just because it gets hard. Because most of the stuff that is good for us can be quite tough, can be quite hard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I'm not very good at pushing through in those cases, to be honest.
I mean, look at what you accomplished. I guess you wouldn't have accomplished if you wouldn't have pushed through.
I work hard in some ways, but yeah.
You're humble. You're a very humble guy.
Maybe. But I agree with you completely.
What would be your advice to someone who wants to start a professional career today? Who wants to turn pro?
Poker, right?
Yeah, in poker, yeah.
I mean, the most important advice I would say is to not, unless you have, years of savings available, don't stop whatever else you're doing and go pro immediately. You need to play part-time and have a proven track record, and that takes time, especially for people who are new to poker. They just have no idea how long it takes to figure out if you're really a winner, and how big of a winner you are, how much you can earn. So I would say, if you're playing online, it takes less time than if you're playing live, but play a lot of hands. Play, I would say, at least spend a year not going pro, and playing part-time and seeing how you do, seeing how much you enjoy it. But like we've actually both been saying, I think different things work for different people. I would say for the majority of people, get exposed to some other opinions besides your own. Don't try to do it on your own. And whether that's training videos or forums or making poker friends, I think the biggest potential downfall for a lot of people can be just lack of self-awareness, or thinking that oh, okay, I've won for 2 weeks. I mean, I know this is just the example I gave, but whatever the example is, like there are a lot of things that are not intuitive about poker. And if you don't have anybody to correct you when you're thinking incorrectly, either about strategy or about, you know, bankroll management, whatever else it may be, I think it's important that you're not out there on an island on your own.
Yeah. Exactly my philosophy as well. I think too many people try on their own. Thank you so much for sharing that, Phil. Would you like to share something else that you might think that you want to share that is valuable? The last word.
I really enjoyed the conversation. I think we covered a lot of really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Just if you are interested in learning more about Run It Once Poker, you can. I guess actually you got my Twitter handle right here, so.
Yeah. We put all the socials. If you just got into poker and you also want to test out a few games, Run It Once Poker, sign up and see where it goes. Maybe this is the beginning of a long journey as becoming a poker professional and make a living out of it. You never know. Thank you so much for Phil Galfond having you here. And I hope it goes well with your challenge. I'm going to be rooting for you for the good old straightforward exploitative style. This is, of course, what I'm cheering for. And thanks to everyone watching and listening. And don't forget to subscribe and to hit the like button. Really helps growing the channel. Phil, thank you so much for being here. Guys,
thank you for having me.
I wish you guys a strong start in 2020. I hope this podcast will give you some inspiration, some motivation. Not only be motivated, also execute. And then see you guys. Bye-bye. Ciao.